Killing spree.
Bomb King is one of the most fun and unique characters in all of Paladins. He's super strong when played by a master, but his learning curve is one of the most difficult in the entire game. That's why in this video, I'll be giving you all the best tips, tricks, and loadouts to help you improve at Bomb King. Before we get started, why don't you go ahead and blow up that subscribe button, because I've got a bunch of guys coming here on the channel and you won't want to miss out. But anyways, I'm AndrewChicken, and this is how to play Bomb King in Paladins.
Bomb King.
Alright, let's start off with an overview of Bomb King's kit. Bomb King's abilities are simple to understand but difficult to master, starting with his primary fire, the Sticky Bomb. This is a two-part ability that's unlike any other weapon in Paladins. When you left-click, Bomb King throws a slow, arcing projectile that will stick to enemies and terrain, acting just like a deployable on contact. Bomb King can deploy up to 6 sticky bombs at a time before the oldest ones will start being destroyed. You can also stick 3 of them to an enemy before they'll start falling off. Enemies can shoot sticky bombs to destroy them after they're stuck to a target, and if they're destroyed, they won't deal any damage. When you right-click, Bomb King will detonate all active sticky bombs to deal massive damage, including ones that are currently mid-air. There are many cool ways to use sticky bombs that we'll talk about later in the advanced tips section. Next, let's talk about his movement ability, the Poppy Bomb. This ability is very similar to the Sticky Bomb, since it's also a slow arcing projectile that will stick to terrain on contact. It also needs to be manually detonated, but you do this by pressing the same button again rather than a different bind. Where it differs is in its effect, since the Poppy Bomb deals very low damage in exchange for a powerful knockback that affects both Bomb King and his enemies. Poppy Bomb is one of the most important tools to master in Bomb King's kit, and we'll have a bunch of tips for it in the advanced tips section as well. Next, we have Bomb King's most straightforward ability, the Grumpy Bomb. This is a big bomb that will stun enemies for 2 seconds and deal 800 damage in a huge radius. Unlike his other bombs, this one can't be manually detonated, instead having a long fuse that gives enemies plenty of time to react. It has a long cast time, so avoid throwing it when an enemy is attacking you. Usually, you'll want to throw this at the objective or another key choke point to cause mayhem and zone out the enemies. And finally, we have Bomb King's ultimate, the King Bomb. This ability has Bomb King gain crowd control immunity and roll up into a ball, then start rolling around until he blows up, dealing a massive amount of damage and stunning enemies for 2 seconds in a huge area. Bomb King can cause this explosion by directly hitting an enemy, casting the ability again to manually detonate, or just by letting the timer on the ultimate run out. Now that we know what his abilities do, let's go over his talents. Bomb King's first talent is Chain Reaction, which is a very satisfying talent to use. This talent makes it so that when you hit more than one sticky bomb with one use of detonate, each explosion after the first deals 30% more damage. For example, if you stack 3 bombs on Fernando, the first one will deal 850 damage, the second one will deal 1105 damage, and the third one will deal 1360 damage. This talent is incredible at tank busting versus tanks and other beefy characters like Lilith. However, this talent has a few weaknesses that hold it back from being his best talent. First of all, you can't stack multiple bombs on a shield, greatly hindering its effectiveness versus characters like Torvald or Barrick. Second, this talent isn't actually that good versus anyone that's not a tank. Most champions in other classes will still take 3 to 4 bombs to kill on average, regardless of your choice in talent. Also, Chain Reaction is unreliable versus highly mobile targets like Eevee and Maeve because it's very difficult to stick multiple bombs on them. Finally, Chain Reaction is bad versus other blasters, because your sticky bombs will often be destroyed by collateral damage. Never play Chain Reaction versus Combat Medic Pip, because he is actively incentivized to shoot his teammates with deadly explosives. You should only pick Chain Reaction when you're focused on killing slow targets with lots of health. Bomb King's next talent is his best talent, Royal Subjects. This talent grants Bomb King 2 charges of Poppy Bomb, but the knockback dealt to enemies is reduced by 40%. Royal Subjects gives Bomb King incredible levels of mobility, and the downside doesn't really matter since you mostly use Poppy Bombs for movement anyways. This talent is especially good on maps where mobility can shine, like Serpent Beach, Splitstone Quarry, and Timbermill. Finally, we have Bomb King's worst talent, Accelerant. This talent causes Grumpy Bomb to explode 40% faster. That might seem useful, but there are several reasons why it's actually not. First of all, while Grumpy Bomb is definitely more reliable with this talent, it's still not reliable enough to reactively stun enemies the same way you would with Makoa, Furia, or Maldamba. Second, the item Unbound will completely minimize the effect of the stun, leaving you with an inept talent that doesn't really do anything. Third, this talent actually makes Grumpy Bomb less effective at zoning because it's on the field for less time. Even though Accelerant gives enemies less time to react, which is certainly a good thing, the default Grumpy Bomb forces the enemies to be concerned with blocking the Grumpy Bomb for a longer amount of time, and that's ultimately more beneficial. Finally, Accelerant comes at the opportunity cost of picking a better talent and loadout. Once the enemies have Unbound, it's much more worthwhile to be playing Royal Subjects or Chain Reaction, and most of Bomb King's cards are also more effective than the cards which buff the Grumpy Bomb. Accelerant can be a fun playstyle to mess around with in casuals, but it's simply not a serious choice in a competitive setting. Anyways, let's move on and talk about Bomb King's loadouts. As always, we're going to start off with a few cards to avoid as well as a few awesome standout cards. First up, let's talk about his healing cards. Most of these cards just aren't worth running because they're too inconsistent. Even though cards like Ablative Coating and Doomsday scale very high, they're not worth it because they're attached to very lengthy cooldowns, and if you're affected by anti-healing when it procs, the heal will be completely wasted. The only healing card that's worth running is King's Court, because it's the most consistent card. King's Court will also stack with Life Rip without diminishing returns because it's a flat heal, not actual life steal. This also means that you can stack up a pile of bombs and detonate them for a big burst of healing, even if you don't actually hit anybody. Next, let's talk about Fallout. This is one of Bomb King's worst cards because it provides almost no value. Grumpy Bomb stuns players very rarely by default, so to get any value out of this card, you have to use his worst talent, Accelerant. But because you're using Accelerant, the enemies will almost certainly buy Unbound to stop you, greatly reducing the duration of the stun. With Unbound 3, the extra stun duration provided by this card at level 5 is a measly 1/8 of a second, which is absolutely not worth it. There is simply no reason to use this card whatsoever, even in an Accelerant build. The last card you should avoid using is Bomb Shelter. This reduces the damage you deal to yourself with sticky bombs, which is only helpful if you're fighting in melee range. Sure, there are rare cases where you'll kill yourself with a sticky bomb, but this is so uncommon that it's not worth investing loadout points to stop this from happening. You could just use King's Court instead to heal back the rare self-damage, and also heal in general every time you detonate a sticky bomb. Now, let's talk about a few standout cards that are usually good to use. King's New Cloak and Reinforced Casing are two generic cards that are very good on Bomb King for general utility. Reinforced Casing can be particularly valuable in today's meta because Bomb King usually needs a few extra bombs to kill players thanks to how strong armor plating is. Another really good card is Backdraft, which grants a major boost to the uptime of your Poppy Bomb. Like King's Court, this card will proc even if you don't hit an enemy, so you can set up a pile of bombs before doing a rollout and then detonate them after for a massive burst of cooldown reduction. Next, we have Shock and Awe, which is a really good movement speed card, even though it doesn't look like it at face value. If you just read what the card says, it seems like a pathetic piece of garbage that you should never use. However, what the card doesn't tell you is that the movement speed buff stacks. If you hit 3 bombs in quick succession, you'll gain a movement speed boost of around 40%, and you can maintain this as long as you keep hitting enemies. One thing to note is that this card differs from Backdraft and King's Court, since you need to hit enemies for it to proc. This card also operates on a per detonate basis, not on a per bomb basis. So, if you stack 3 bombs on an enemy and then detonate, Shock and Awe will only provide the movement speed boost once. You need to spam bombs rather than stack bombs for this card to be effective, making it a poor choice when using Chain Reaction. Finally, let's talk about Jolt. This is Bomb King's most unique loadout card, and it's very fun to use at level 5 to throw enemies off the map. However, this isn't usually the most competitively viable strategy. Instead, some players choose to use Jolt as a level 1 filler because it causes Poppy Bomb to explode on contact with any surface. This can take out some of the unreliability with Poppy Bomb when fighting against blasters, since blasters will often destroy the Poppy Bomb before Bomb King can detonate it. However, Jolt can also make the Poppy Bomb uncomfortable to use for mobility, because it requires extra flick shots to travel in the direction you want. Jolt also currently has a bug when used with Royal Subjects. If you detonate the Poppy Bomb mid-air, it'll automatically throw the second Poppy Bomb, causing you to use 2 Poppy Bombs for just 1 Poppy Jump. Ultimately, whether or not you use Jolt as a level 1 filler is entirely up to your personal preference. Some people find it to be comfortable to use, while others find it to be a nuisance. All of the builds I'm about to show you will not be using Jolt as a filler because I personally don't enjoy the card, but you can easily swap out one of the fillers for Jolt if you prefer. Anyways, now it's time to get to the builds. Up first, we have my generic ammo build, which uses reinforced casing at a high level. I find that extra ammo is particularly helpful these days because of how powerful damage reduction and health builds are. I also have King's New Cloak and Backdraft in here because they're both excellent cards for keeping Bomb King alive and mobile. I use all three of these cards in most builds I make at some capacity. This next build is the classic Nitro build for Royal Subjects, with all the loadout points invested in mobility. Backdraft and Air Blast provide maximum uptime and control of the Poppy Bomb, and Shock and Awe gives us a massive movement speed boost. This build can achieve some pretty insane mobility when paired with Nimble and Chronos, and is a lot of fun. However, for more serious engagements, you'll want to pack a bit more survivability to see the match through. That's why I have a modified Nitro HP build which drops Air Blast in favor of King's New Cloak for some extra health. Air Blast is the least important of the three Nitro cards, which is why it's the one we're removing in this case. This build is still extremely fun to play, but is also more likely to win you the game than the previous edition. Finally, just in case you do want to try out Accelerant, I have this build which focuses on maximizing the Grumpy Bomb's uptime. The combination of Countdown, Uncontrolled, and a bit of Chronos will let you spam Grumpy Bombs with incredible efficiency. However, this build is low on survivability and mobility, so be very careful with your positioning. Next, let's discuss what items you should buy with Bomb King. As I've already mentioned, Nimble and Chronos are two very fun options for maximizing the usage of your Poppy Bomb. Nimble is especially good for Bomb King because it's cheap, dependable, and stacks with his movement speed card without too many diminishing returns. The standard survival items are also good on Bomb King, such as Armor Plating, Unbound, and Veteran depending on the situation. Life Rip can be a good buy because Bomb King does high damage with each of his bombs, though you usually only want to buy it when you have an unreliable healer. If you have a pocket, Rejuvenate is better to pick up instead. Deft Hands is also surprisingly good on Bomb King if you're not using a max ammo build. Bomb King's ammo count is low and his reload speed is long, so reducing his reload speed is very helpful. Bomb King is also a very good wrecker because of his high damage output, so if you're facing enemies like Fernando or Torvald, make sure to buy Wrecker versus them. Finally, Bloodbath, formerly known as Kill to Heal, used to be good on Bomb King, but since the rework in Season 7, it's the worst item in the game, and you should not buy it with Bomb King. Anyways, now that we've got the loadouts and items out of the way, it's finally time to move on to advanced gameplay tips. We're going to tackle the advanced tips a bit differently in this guide by separating them into distinct chapters, because Bomb King's abilities are very complex and have a lot of techniques to learn and practice. But before we discuss anything to do with his abilities, there's one very important warning I have to get out of the way. Bomb King is the worst character in the game, bar none, when played with high ping. Bomb King's abilities are very complex and all of them require good latency to work properly, so if your network connection is bad and you're playing with more than 100 ping, Bomb King will be very unreliable. If you know your ping will be bad, play Bomb King at your own risk. I'm dead serious, it is an awful experience playing this champion on ping. I'm a Bomb King main who lives in North America, and I wouldn't dare play him on EU, even though I usually get around 90 to 110 ping there. But with that warning out of the way, let's get started. Up first, let's talk about the sticky bomb. The primary way you use sticky bombs is by throwing one bomb, then detonating it mid-air when it's next to a target. Even if you don't land a direct stick, you can still detonate the bomb when it's right next to them to deal a lot of damage. The best way to practice this timing and distance judgment is to go to the shooting range and experiment with how long you have to wait before detonating the bomb and how high you have to aim above a target at different distances to reliably hit them. Theoretically, you can kill an enemy faster by sticking multiple bombs to them and detonating once, rather than detonating multiple times. However, this is risky because the enemies will have time to cleanse the bombs with an ability, or destroy them with any kind of damage. Against blasters, you never want to stick multiple bombs on a target because they could be destroyed at any time by collateral damage. Also, you have to remember that after 3 sticks, the bombs will start to fall off the enemies. This means you can hit a maximum of 4 bombs before detonating, if you detonate the 4th bomb the instant it hits the enemy. This is mostly useful when countering champions like Rom, who you can easily stick multiple bombs on. Most of the time though, you should just detonate 1 bomb at a time, especially versus evasive targets. Bomb King's sticky bombs are also very slow. Even though they have no damage fall off at range, they're still a poor option for attacking targets who are far away. You usually want to play in medium to close range with Bomb King, and you should take angles and positions to let him stick enemies as easily as possible. However, there's a lot more to good sticky bomb usage than just spamming at the enemies. Sticky bombs can also be used for cover denial by detonating behind corners and shields. This is a good way to counter short shields like what Khan and Ash use, or hit enemies right as they run behind a corner. It's a skill that takes time to practice, but is definitely worth learning. Sticky bombs can also be used as a trap in certain situations. You can lay down a bunch of sticky bombs at the destination of a portal like the ones found on Timbermill to deal massive damage to an unsuspecting champion running through. You can also do this to a spawn door, though this is significantly easier for the enemies to spot and counter. Sticky traps are very rarely used, but can be a fun way to surprise the enemies and send them back to spawn. Finally, you can prepare a pile of sticky bombs to proc certain cards. This is mostly done to enable rollouts at the start of a round, but can also be done in the middle of a round if you have time to set it up. If you prepare a pile of 6 bombs on a wall that's out of sight of the enemies, you can get a big boost from Backdraft or King's Court the next time you detonate. If you're doing a rollout like this one on Serpent Beach that requires 2 sticky bombs, having a sticky bomb pile is crucial to getting your third poppy bomb online so you can reposition as soon as possible. This leads us nicely into the next thing I want to talk about, which is proper usage of the Poppy Bomb. Mastering Poppy Bomb is the key to mastering Bomb King, and there are many important techniques you should learn to get the most out of this amazing ability. Before we talk about using the Poppy Bomb for movement, let's quickly discuss when you should use Poppy Bomb aggressively. There are 2 distinct and rare circumstances where Poppy Bomb is good as a defensive tool. First, Poppy Bomb can be used to knock enemies off the map. This often requires quick reactions, since enemies usually won't stay vulnerable near the edge of the map when they know Bomb King is around. This also only works against champions with no vertical mobility, so don't try this versus someone like Maeve. Poppy Bomb can also be used to displace enemies off the high ground, such as this platform on Splitstone Quarry. Again, this is usually only effective versus slow champions with no vertical mobility. The second and even more niche way you can use Poppy Bomb aggressively is to finish off a kill. Sometimes you'll get somebody extremely low and need to finish them off, but then you run out of ammo. The Poppy Bomb does 150 damage, which isn't a lot, but it can finish off enemies if they're super low. Killing someone with the Poppy is much faster than reloading if you don't have deft hands, and while you almost never need to use this, it's still good to know about and can save you in a pinch. Now, let's talk about how to maximize the Poppy Bomb for mobility. With enough skill, you can make jumps that otherwise seem impossible with one Poppy Bomb, just like this. But first, let's start with the basics. An easy way to get more distance out of your Poppy Bomb is to jump before using it. You should get in the habit of jumping every time you Poppy, because there's absolutely no reason not to. A simple jump can often be the difference between making it to a platform or falling on the floor. Wall jumps are even better than regular jumps, and it's important to know where you can use them to your advantage. Take this jump on Serpent Beach as an example. Without a wall jump, this is impossible to reach normally from Bomb King in this position. Wall jumps can also help you get more horizontal distance too, and that's because you can combine them with what I like to call an air poppy. This is when you use the poppy in midair by very quickly throwing the poppy and then detonating it. This can be tricky to master at first, but it can greatly boost the distance traveled with one poppy because you can jump off a ledge and then use the Poppy Bomb rather than starting while still on the ledge. All of these techniques combined are usually more than enough for your average Poppy Bomb enthusiast, and will help you reach most of the feasible platforms in the game. However, as you can see, this still isn't enough to get us across the objective on Serpent Beach. So, what are we missing? Well, there's an advanced technique that you can do to carry your momentum way farther than normal with Bomb King, and that's to utilize self-damage with his sticky bombs. You see, every time you hit yourself with a sticky bomb, you apply a very small knockback. If you detonate a sticky bomb on yourself while falling, you can boop yourself a little bit farther along than you would normally go. This is called a sticky boost, and is the secret sauce that enables many of the most difficult rollouts and Poppy Bomb maneuvers in the game, and it's how we're going to clear the objective on Serpent Beach. So, let's put the pieces of the puzzle together and explain how this rollout works. We start by wall jumping off the ledge, and using the Poppy Bomb right as we start to fall. We then swerve around the statue, and sticky boost to land square on the other side of the point. Now, this particular example isn't super practical, and not just because it's ridiculously overcomplicated. You see, you don't actually need to try so hard just to get across the point. There's one key factor that I have completely left out until this point, and that's nimble. If you buy Nimble, you can gracefully jump across the point just like this and land on the other side, without any fancy wall jumps or self-damage. You see, movement speed buffs are insanely good on Bomb King because they greatly enhance his ability to fly with Poppy Bomb. When you combine Nimble with these different techniques, any map turns into a jungle gym for Bomb King to play around on, and it's truly a wonderful thing. Bomb King can also take advantage of his mount in some niche situations. You see, when you dismount mid-air, you carry forward the momentum of your mount while using your abilities. We can take advantage of that with Master Riding to turn Bomb King into somewhat of a nuclear missile. This dismount poppy works by having Bomb King right off of a tall ledge, and then quickly dismount and do a mid-air poppy. Oftentimes, this is the starting technique for a good multi-poppy rollout. Up until this point, we've only discussed what you can do with one Poppy Bomb. However, Bomb King can have access to 2 and sometimes even 3 Poppy Bombs all at the same time, making things get way crazier. Bomb King can pull off multi-Poppy Bomb rollouts that would make 7 blush, but you have to understand how they work. Normally, Bomb King's ability to have 2 Poppy Bombs is used for more tactical mobility, where you can dive a target and then reposition or retreat with a second Poppy Bomb. You usually want to use Poppy Bombs to traverse between platforms and dodge enemy attacks, and having 2 Poppy Bombs lets you do this more frequently. However, if you use both Poppy Bombs at the same time, you can travel an incredible distance and fly into the enemy team when they least expect it. This isn't as simple as just throwing 2 poppies back to back though, oh no. This requires a bit of setup and map knowledge to execute properly. You see, you can't do a 2 poppy rollout just anywhere. You need a large open stretch of air where you can fly, and in some cases you need to know which obstacles you can poppy over. For example, you can poppy over this bridge on Stone Keep for a clean rollout, but this bridge on Warder's Gate is much less practical. You also need to be careful when attempting one of these rollouts. When you use both poppies back to back, you leave yourself vulnerable to being caught in a bad position without an escape. To prevent this, you need to have a plan. Be aware of where the enemies are and only double poppy when you know you're not likely to die once you land. Or, if you have the time to set it up, prepare a pile of sticky bombs to proc backdraft when you land. If you plan on doing any double poppy rollouts at the start of a round, always deploy a pile of 6 sticky bombs before you mount up. These rollouts are always safer when you have Chronos to mitigate the time it takes for you to get your next poppy. Most of the time, double poppy rollouts are used to enable your ultimate by flying your massive explosive body into the enemies at Mach 5. The best rollout spots are usually ones that give you a clear path towards dropping an atomic bomb on the enemies' heads. Now, I can't show you all the good rollout spots because we'd be here all day, so let me quickly run through a few of my favorites. You can jump up and over the building on Serpent Beach to crash down onto the objective like this, or you can crash into the enemy's backline by skirting around the side of the building and doing a dismount poppy directly around the flank of the map. You can also get on top of this wall and then double poppy directly over the roof of Brightmarsh for a very fun surprise ult. Or you can ult from spawn directly over this tower onto the payload lane if you're on defense. Stone Keep also has a very fun rollout that you can do at the start of the round while everyone is in the curved hallway. You can exit out of the door and double poppy directly into this gap in the wall if you execute it properly, which is a very fun way to prank your friends.
I see Andrew emoting. Kana.
To practice both single and double poppy rollouts, I recommend going into custom games on all the different maps and experimenting with different combos and positions. Mastering the poppy bomb takes time, but it's absolutely worth it because it's one of the most fun movement abilities in the entire game, and it can turn Bomb King into an absolute beast of a character. However, if you truly want to be crowned the king of all rollouts, then here are some extreme, legendary, and totally impractical triple poppy rollouts that are the ultimate test of your skill. There's absolutely no reason you need to know how to do these rollouts for regular gameplay, and you should never attempt these 2 rollouts in ranked, but I'm including them anyways because they're a great way to demonstrate your mastery of this character. And if you use these to ult some poor soul in casuals, that's just a viral clip waiting to happen. Let's start with the easiest of the 2. This Timbermill rollout has Bomb King travel from the boxes on his far side high ground all the way over to the other far side high ground, which pushes the very limits of how far you can travel with the Poppy Bomb. To set up this rollout, you need Nimble 3, Chronos 3, Backdraft 5, and a pile of 6 sticky bombs. Start by jumping off the highest box and using your first poppy. A second later, use your second poppy, then wait until you start descending and then sticky boost. Immediately use your third poppy bomb, and then do 2 more precise sticky boosts to land on the opposing high ground. This is extremely difficult, and you should never attempt this in a real game, but it's very rewarding and demonstrates all of the tech you've learned up to this point. This second rollout is the most difficult rollout I've ever done, and requires extreme precision to pull off. Once again, you need to prepare by getting Nimble 3, Chronos 3, Backdraft 5, and a pile of 6 sticky bombs. Then, do a wall jump off this railing, and use both your poppies with this specific timing to vault over the mountain. Then, do 2 precise sticky boosts to land in the window, making sure not to hit your head on the roof. Then, use 1 more poppy bomb and sticky boost into the window on the opposite side, so you can ult whichever poor soul had to witness Bomb King turning on creative mode flight. Now, let's bring Bomb King back down to earth and talk about his other abilities. Since Grumpy Bomb and his ultimate don't have as many unique mechanics, we're going to talk about them both in this section. Grumpy Bomb is a tool used primarily for zoning, as we mentioned when talking about Accelerant. This means you should prioritize throwing it at key choke points like the objective, on the payload, or a hallway that you know enemies are coming down. Grumpy Bomb also has a very long casting animation, so you should never throw the Grumpy Bomb when you see an enemy attacking you. This wastes precious seconds that you could have used to throw sticky bombs instead, and the enemy will likely kill you and evade the Grumpy Bomb as a result. It's always better to spam stickies at someone when they're aggressing you instead of trying to weave in a Grumpy Bomb. Bomb King's ultimate is a very powerful tool when used properly. As we've already covered, you can use it in conjunction with Poppy Bombs to drop an atomic bomb on the enemies, but you can also use his ultimate in a few other neat ways. First of all, if you know enemies are coming around the corner or are grouped up in a tight hallway, you can preemptively ult and roll on in to create total devastation. Or of course, you can plan out a wombo combo with your team to wreak havoc on the enemies with a well-timed Saris ult, Inara stun, or any other crowd control tool. However, if they ult before you, you'll likely be late to capitalize on it because Bomb King's ultimate has a very long windup. King Bomb also has a unique quirk in that it gets affected by movement speed buffs. If you pair Bomb King's ult with Grok's ultimate and totems, you can turn Bomb King into the fastest land vehicle in the entire realm. This hypersonic speed can help you confirm Bomb King's ultimate way better than without any sort of speed buffs. In general, you never want to let the enemies see you coming when you're ulting with Bomb King. Bomb King is relatively slow in his ultimate compared to enemy movement abilities, and if you're ulting from a distance, they'll have plenty of time to kill you before you can even hit them. Furthermore, enemies with high health pools or damage reduction will not die to your ultimate, even with a direct impact. Sometimes it's best to use the ultimate purely for its stun, by just barely getting in range and stunning them so you can load them up with sticky bombs. However, when the enemies have Unbound, the ultimate is almost exclusively used for its damage because you won't have enough time to stick them while they're stunned. Who you ult and how you ult them depends on which champions are fighting and what items they have. And sometimes, it's just straight up not worth it to ult. If the enemies are hyper-mobile with damage reduction and Unbound, your ultimate is basically useless, and you'll be more effective trying to kill them with sticky bombs and good positioning instead. Also, I know this is a small tip, but make sure you reload before you ult. You never want to ult somebody and have no sticky bombs left to finish the kill. But anyways, that's going to do it for this guide on how to play Bomb King in Paladins. If you found this video to be helpful, then make sure to drop a like and subscribe for more guides from me in the future. If you want to see my guides for other champions as well as general Paladins tips, I have multiple playlists linked in the description dedicated to just that. Also, comment down below which champion you'd like to see a guide for next. Lastly, make sure to check out my Twitch channel and Discord server linked down below. And if you want to support this channel directly, you can do so by buying crystals over at nexus.gg/AndrewChicken. Nexus is officially affiliated with Evil Mojo and is a great way to support your favorite content creators. But with all that being said, thank you guys for watching, I will see you all next time, peace out.